Hello, my name is Jimmy and welcome to the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. So this 2024 model isn't new. It was introduced back in 2022 and basically there hasn't been any changes. But it's still, well, I think it's actually a good choice because it's very similar to the Honda Pilot V6, 3 rows, well, pretty good reliability, at least for this generation. The old one with the CVT was maybe not the best, but this one, it has been good. It has been good. And it's less than the Pilot. However, it seems that not a lot of people want this because, well, if we look at the sales number in the US, the Pilot is a much stronger contender. I mean, the Palisade, Telluride, they all outsell this. And I don't really get why. So I wanted to book this vehicle and see exactly why. Well, this can't outsell the others. Why is this, well, the forgotten 3-row SUV? So let's talk about the styling first. I think it's a good looking vehicle front to back. It's not offensive in any way, but it doesn't stand out. The V-Motion grille on the front, LED headlamps, it's pretty traditional kind of 3-row SUV look that we have on the front. On the side, there's nothing really that stands out. Yeah, we got 20-inch wheels, and depending on the paint option, you can get a blacked out roof. But that's really it. The rear 3/4 kind of look Land Rover-ish, which I do like, but that's really it. The rest of it is pretty plain Jane. And same with the rear. Other than the fact that it's this Pathfinder right across the rear, there's nothing really, well, that great about it. While I do admit it's better than the previous generation, I don't know, maybe I'm hoping for a little bit more than just something. But I mean, with age, this unoffensive styling, it's gonna be better, it's gonna be longer lasting at least, but it's, well, it doesn't stand out like a Palisade or Telluride would. It basically hides in the shadows with a Pilot, but at least a Honda, just people are more, well, drawn to it. If we open up the trunk, we get 16.6 cubic feet of space. Definitely not too bad. However, it is smaller than the Pilot. We do have a false floor on the bottom, and there's a little bit of space here. The previous generation, you got that Bose subwoofer, but it's now redesigned and gone. So it's a much more usable space, which of course we can appreciate. Fold down the 3rd row, fold down the 2nd row, and you can put 4x8 sheets in here, which is something that the Pilot can't do. As for getting access to the 3rd row, because this is the top trim, I do have the center console rather than a bench. It is removable, but unlike the Honda Pilot, where you can store it in the trunk, I mean, you can store this in the trunk, but it's gonna flop around and whatnot, so it's probably not the safest thing. So you can put it in the trunk, but not likely. So you can go through the center if you wish, but if not, there is a button right here where you can slide your seat forward. All right, 3rd row. Let me pull the 2nd row down. Oh God, oh God. If the 2nd row is moved all the way back, as you can see, I'm 5'11", not the most comfortable. You can move these seats forward. That's a more realistic situation than this. But you know what? It's not horrible back here. The vents on the top is a lovely addition. And I still got USB ports on the side. So I can charge my devices. I can hold all my drinks, as there's plenty of cup holders for 3 people back here. And yeah, there's 3 seat belts, so you can technically fit 3, but just no one's gonna be all that comfortable. Speaking of comfortable, I'm gonna head up because this is not great. All right, the 2nd row. I'm 5'11", headroom, not a problem. Legroom, also not a problem. If you want to sacrifice whatever legroom you have for the 3rd row, you can push this all the way up, and then definitely not as comfortable. So let's slide that back. I got my climate controls in the center, USB-C port, AC outlet, all that is in the center, along with my heated seat control, so that's nice. Vents, of course, are at the top, and I got my baby shades on this side. You gotta have your baby shades, don't you? If you're thinking about carrying child seats in here, well, let me tell you exactly how they fit. I am a child passenger safety technician, and this is a collect laying infant seat. There's no problems getting the infant carrier. There's plenty of space. On the driver's side here, this is a collect in rear facing. This is what my child is currently sitting in. No issues at all. And I'm still able to sit in front of that seat at 5'11" with no issues. As for forward facing seats, of course, you can put them in the middle with no problems here. As for the third row, you can put them there. However, some forward-facing seats, you just have to watch out for just the amount of legroom that they may have. As for lower anchors, you get 3 sets in total on this trim. There's one on the driver's side in the back, and there's one set on the driver's side and a set on the passenger side here in the second row. As for upper anchors though, I can definitely tell you there's 5 anchors in here, and if you have the bench version, there are 6 anchors within the Pathfinder. As for the front here, these seats are very, very comfortable. They're heated and cooled, but they're not massaging. You have to step up to the QX60 for that. Because they are the zero gravity Nissan chairs, it's quite supportive. I do have a 4-way lumbar support on the driver's side, only 2-way for the passenger, but they don't really have lateral support. For some, it's fine, but for me, you know what? For this class, acceptable. Just as acceptable is this kind of racing-inspired steering wheel or sports steering wheel, because it does have a flat bottom. Not that anyone driving, well, this would care really, but I guess it just falls in line with some other Nissan products. You do get a full digital cluster right behind, and that shows you plenty of information there, and there's a heads-up display on top to show you a little bit more. The center screen is a little bit small in today's standard, but it does have wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, so for most people that's going to be absolutely fine, but for others they're going to complain about the screen size. I mean, for the week that I've been using it, within the Nissan menu, horrible. It's slow, it's laggy, but within CarPlay, no problems. It connects, it works, so it's fine. Just as fine as the 3-zone climate control. Pretty standard affair here. This actually is like ripped out of the Rogue and just kind of placed in here. It works, no complaints. Same thing with like everything else. Everything just works. I mean, the materials are pretty good. Soft touch materials basically all over. You get a little cubby in front of the passenger here for you to put, you know, your phone or mints or whatever, but unfortunately there's no USB charger there where some other vehicles have. So it's similar to others, but like the theme, it just doesn't stand out. And looking at the powertrain, it's very similar here. This VQ V6 makes 284 horsepower and 259 pound-feet of torque. Unlike the previous generation, as I mentioned before, no more CVT. It is a 9-speed, which is great, but it doesn't stand out. I mean, the Pilot has 10. Is it better than that? No, not really. It's not worse than it. So that's something. And it can tow 6,000 pounds, which the Pilot can only do 5,000. So at least you get one up on that. But I don't think a lot of people that wants to tow 6,000 would be driving this. They would want something a little bit bigger, like a Sequoia, a Tahoe, something that's designed to tow a little bit more with, well, let's be honest, just a bigger powertrain. This is fine, but you don't really want to tow 6,000 pounds with it. In terms of the ride and handling, it's nice and soft, it's nice and supple. Steering is relatively light. It's pretty forgettable, but what in this class isn't? Other than like the CX-90, which does bring a little bit more excitement to the class, the rest of it is basically, well, the same. It's a very pleasant experience, but it's not something you're going to remember. It's not something that you're going to enjoy to a place where you're going to be like telling your friends just how great of a driving vehicle this is. It's inoffensively good. And like I said, that's just the overall theme. There's nothing bad about this vehicle. There really isn't. The pricing is lower than the Pilot. I looked at insurance rates in Toronto because here in BC, our insurance is owned by the government, which is fantastic. But in Ontario, where you can get like insurance from a bank, for example, I looked at that. It's lower than the Pilot. I looked at cost of ownership just as an average. It is lower from a Nissan perspective than a Honda would be. And what else? I looked at insurance, maintenance cost, as well as something else. Oh, fuel cost, of course. This is better on gas than the Pilot, at least on paper. I'm averaging 12.3, which is very similar to what I had when I had the Pilot in terms of kind of how I'm driving and whatnot. And that's really it. It's a really good all-arounder. It is cheaper than the Pilot and much of the rest. It's just fine. And I think that's why it's struggling, because it's just fine. In this really lucrative 3-row SUV market, you need something that stands out. And this just does it. It stands in a place where a lot of great vehicle exists. And because of that, there's just really no point to pick the Nissan unless you love the brand, or you're just really close with someone that works at the dealership, or something along the lines of that. It doesn't have anything that, well, makes it the first choice for most people. It needs a little bit more. And that's really it. That's the reason, I guess, why this just can't sell as well as the Pilot. It's fine. It just needs to be better than that. In any case, thank you so much for watching this video. Like the video if you do, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.